Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, the Labour Party have said that their plan for Britain's economy will create 1 million jobs and drive growth. The Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, was in York this morning giving a speech on Labour's industrial strategy. He said he would work to make Britain's energy system 60% renewable by 2030 and had this to say about the state of the UK jobs market.
I've seen an economy that is grossly imbalanced. Talk to people and you understand the consequences of this problem. London overheats and the cost of living there rises, while communities in too much of the rest of the country have seen their local economies hollowed out, industries decline and stable jobs gone. Right across our country, too many people are trapped in precarious, low-paid work, while a few at the top get much richer.
Jeremy Corbyn, and joining me now is Labour's Shadow Industrial Strategy Minister Chi Onwurah, and she's in York. Chi, one of your flagship policies is raising corporation tax by 7% to 26% to fund public services. Now, this means hundreds of thousands of businesses will have less money to spend on creating jobs. So, in fact, your plan will hurt jobs.
Our plan, the industrial strategy we've announced today, is about creating 1 million good jobs across the UK and using our industrial strategy to do that. On the point of the corporation tax, what we're doing is we are restoring corporation tax still to less than the levels that it was when Labour left government, and most importantly to less than the levels of almost every other country. For example, in the United States, corporation tax is at 39%. What we're saying here, and this is the perfect riposte to Donald Trump, who arguing that withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement is about protection jobs, we are showing that by decarbonising our energy production, we can create jobs, and not just any jobs, good jobs, jobs that pay, not minimum wage jobs, jobs that pay a proper wage and jobs that people can be proud of.
Right.
And that is what this country needs.
Except they will have less money, of course, businesses. If you're going to tax them more heavily, then they'll have less money. Whatever you do with that money, of course, is up to the Labour Party. But hang on.
No,
but
you mustn't look at this as a zero-sum game.
No, but I just need to ask the specific.
Businesses will benefit from a growing economy, so they won't have less money.
Right, but I am looking at the policy in isolation because this is what you're talking about. It's an important policy. You flagged it up because you want to fund public services with it. But the Institute for Fiscal Studies has said that your plan will actually raise less money in the medium to long run because companies will choose not to invest in the UK. So this isn't me, this is the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who say that your plans, your fiscal plans, are overly optimistic and will actually put companies off investing in the UK, which means you won't be able to create those jobs.
Our plans are fully costed, and in costing them, we've taken allowance for behavioural change as a consequence of the changes to taxes that we'll be making specifically for corporation tax. But much of our plan that we're announcing today is actually funded by our National Transformation Fund and our National Investment Bank. And it's the creation of a National Investment Bank which will have regional offices, including a Bank of the North, which will encourage investment in small and medium businesses across our country, which will help to address the huge. We have the most regionally imbalanced economy amongst the major economies, and we need to get that right because it's holding back the potential of cities like York, of countries, of our nations and regions. Our people, our employees are being held back by a lack of investment in skills. We have one of the worst productivity rate, in fact, the worst productivity rate in the developed world.
But actually, Chi, isn't that to do with levels of high employment? Because listening to you and listening to Jeremy Corbyn, you would think we're in the midst of a massive unemployment crisis. Actually, employment is at a record high, and we have the lowest youth unemployment in Europe. So are you trying to fix something that just isn't broken?
You talk to people in Newcastle across the country, they haven't had a pay rise since Labour was in government.
Fine, we'll come on to wages. We'll come on to wages in a minute, but you're talking about creating jobs, and we have very high employment levels. You accept that?
6 million people are in work, and they are not in a job that pays them a living wage. They can't live from their work. We are rebuilding the working poor. This strategy is about ensuring that those who are in work, that work pays, and they can work that they're proud of.
Right. I mean, Toby Young, let's talk about wages, because that is the problem. They have stagnated for years since the financial crash. And hasn't Chi got a point, and Labour broadly, that the jobs that have been created, the jobs miracle that the Tories have talked about, yes, people are in work, but it's not enough to help them live in a way that you or I would like to?
Well, it's true that wages have stagnated since the financial crash, but that was a global financial crash, and that's happened all over the developed world, not just in the UK. But you're quite right to point out that under the last Labour government in 2010, after 13 years of Labour being in office, unemployment stood at 8%. It's now about 4.5%. Unemployment amongst young people was over 1 million when Labour left office. It's now less than 500,000. Labour's industrial strategy is complete nonsense. Their economic policy, as before, is tax and spend. They said they want to nationalise...
But why is it nonsense?
Well, because I'll tell you why. Because they said they want to nationalise the gas, electricity and water industries. That's going to cost roughly 200 billion. Where are they going to find the money? Labour's industrial strategy is to start planting magic money trees on an industrial scale.
But the industrial strategy here is about creating jobs, about investing around the country, not centralising everything in London and the South East. That's not nonsense.
Well, the Northern Powerhouse was a Conservative Party policy, the decentralisation, the creation of 8 mayors. We've just seen mayors elected in Birmingham and Manchester. That's hardly a Labour Party policy.
Right.
But no one has any confidence in the Labour Party's ability to grow the economy. The deficit was over 150 billion when Labour left office. It's less than a third of that now. That's what's going to affect the economy and, of course, what deal we get in the Brexit negotiations.
Right. In terms of the trust on the economy, that is still a problem, isn't it, for Labour? Because for all the policies that people may regard as sensible and may lead to growth in the economy, they still don't trust Labour to do it.
I have to say that's not what I found when I've been on the doorstep. People have sensible questions about where does the money come to pay for the fiscal policy.
What do you say to the IFS who say that it's just not going to raise the money that Labour have said they've costed
the IFS are not macroeconomists. They're a very respected spreadsheet organisation for adding up whether or not people's commitments and tax raising seriously add up. But they have a wrong, I would argue, model of the macroeconomic dynamics of this country. I think, we could, with respect to them, it would be equally possible to get expert opinion to back up what Labour says. But on this question of a national industrial strategy, I think it's important. People like me have been saying for years, it is not easy to do national industrial strategy, but it is desperately desired that all parties get their heads around how we do it. Because after Brexit's going to happen, the world will be reshaped. The market doesn't solve it. The government needs to shape the market and encourage investment in high-quality employment and high-value business. If we don't, it will go to Ireland, it will go to an independent Scotland if that takes place.
But in terms of corporation tax, of course, we have got a lower corporation tax than the rest of the G7, not Ireland, obviously, but the rest of the G7.
And look what it attracts. Still...
Investment.
No, look at the kind of investment it attracts. There is no GE. There is very little high-value investment coming to the United Kingdom because what they prefer are places where people feel happy in their skins, where there is a national story. And we haven't given international business that. In fact, we keep changing the story.
All right, well, more likely to come here if Jeremy Corbyn.
Absolutely.
Let me just go finally back to Chi Onwurah. On zero-hours contracts, McDonald's carried out a survey of its employees. They wanted to offer all of them the chance to go on to fixed-term contracts, and actually a significant number of them said, we'd like to stay on flexible contracts. What do you say to that?
What our manifesto says quite clearly in our industrial strategy is that we will abolish zero-hours contracts, but we will retain the ability for flexible employment, which is at the control of the employee. Because I know from talking to... I know that we cannot plan for their parental duties, for looking for other jobs. It is absolutely destroying many lives. 0-hour contracts badly implemented.
And
it's a really important part of making people invest in employees, to have a proper contract, to have proper investment, to have a proper national education service which will ensure that working people also can have access to education and skills, skill up our economy, improve our productivity, create jobs, and have an economy that works for the many, not the few.
Very briefly, Toby Young.
The ONS carried out a survey and discovered that 2/3 of the people on 0 hours contracts like being on 0 hours contracts. And
they like flexibility, not 0 hours contracts.
They like the contracts they're on, and that includes the 60 or so people employed by Labour Party MPs on 0 hours contracts.
G. Onwurah, thank you very much.